Sold Celeste's voice rang out over the phone, syrupy and smug. 2.4 million L. Not bad for an old shack with peeling shutters and outdated wiring, right? My grip on the coffee mug tightened until my knuckles ached. I was standing in my Boston apartment, the early sunlight painting the floor golden, but my body felt ice cold. You sold it. The beach house? Yes, she said like it was nothing. Don't look so surprised. No one's touched the place in years. It was just rotting on that coastline. I found a buyer who adores the rustic vibe. You're welcome. I pressed the phone tighter to my ear. Celeste, that house wasn't just property. It was Grandma Mirabelle's. And she left it to both of us. Celeste interrupted. I know, but I'm the executor of the estate. Remember, I had full authority to make the call. You were too busy closing court cases or chasing your next promotion to be involved. My chest burned. That doesn't give you the right to sell without my consent. She let out a dry laugh. Oh, please. You never cared about that house. You skipped half the estate meetings, always too busy to fly back. I've handled everything: funeral planning, taxes, maintenance. I earned that sale. I blinked, the words thudding against my ribs. The beach house was where Grandma taught us to swim, where we played board games on stormy nights and watched fireworks from the porch. It wasn't just a house. It was the last piece of her that still breathed. Celeste continued oblivious. Don't worry, I'm putting your share to good use. Thatcher's always dreamed of a yacht. This way we all win. I couldn't speak. Anyway, the paperwork's finalized. The buyers take possession next week. You might want to clear out whatever junk you left behind. I already took the valuable stuff. You're welcome. The call ended before I could say another word. My hand dropped to my side phone, still in my grasp. The apartment was silent, save for the faint hum of traffic outside. In that quiet, I could still hear Grandma Mirabelle's laugh echoing from the porch, her wind chimes dancing by the sea. I closed my eyes and breathed deep. She'd given me a silver key at her funeral, pressed it into my hand, and said, "When the time is right, you'll know what to do." Maybe that time was now. The key had always been a mystery. It rested on a slender chain tucked beneath my blouse every day since Grandma Mirabelle's funeral. You'll know when she had said softly, clasping my hand around it, her fingers cool and steady. I hadn't questioned her then, too wrecked by grief, too consumed with sorting probate documents and legal minutiae from a distance. The key had become a quiet weight I carried, more emotional than functional. Now it pulsed against my chest like a signal. I set my coffee down and stepped into my home office. Scrolling through old contacts, I found the number and pressed call before I could overthink it. Wendell Harrow, came the voice, still crisp, still composed. It's Eloise Maddox, I said. Grandma's granddaughter. A pause. Then I've been expecting your call. She sold the beach house, Wendell. Celeste. Said it's finalized, that I had no say. Another pause. The sound of paper rustling. I received notice this morning. I thought it might come to this. Tell me, Eloise, have you been inside Mirabelle's study since she passed? I hesitated. No, I haven't had the time. She left very specific instructions regarding that room. Instructions meant only for you. Celeste knows nothing about them. I swallowed hard. You think there's something important in there? I know there is. Mirabelle was not one to leave anything to chance. She anticipated conflict. Of course she did. Grandma could read people like legal briefs. She saw through charm, predicted behavior, and always played the long game. She had watched Celeste's vanity grow, just as she had watched me retreat into career, believing it was strength. I can catch a train to Newport, I said, voice steadier than I felt. Good. I'll meet you at the station. And Eloise, bring the key. I glanced down at the chain, the delicate silver glinting beneath my collar. I unclasped it gently, running my thumb over its grooves. After all this time, it might finally have something to unlock. And I had a feeling it wasn't just a door. The house smelled exactly the same salt air, old wood lavender from Grandma's linen drawer. The sun filtered through gauzy curtains, casting long shadows across the floorboards as I stepped into the study, heart thudding. Wendell waited quietly in the doorway, giving me space. This room had always felt like her mind made visible, orderly chaos. Papers stacked in neat piles, maps of the coastline pinned to the wall, her fountain pens aligned just so. But what I needed wasn't in plain sight. She had once told me, half laughing, "Some things stay hidden because they're only meant for those who look with purpose." I walked to the back wall and ran my hand along the paneling beneath the bookshelf. There, faint but familiar, a tiny keyhole behind the sliding cabinet door. The key fit like it had been waiting. Inside the hidden safe was a thick envelope with my name in her handwriting, a leather-bound folder, and a stack of documents clipped together with a seal. I pulled everything out slowly, hands trembling. The first document was an amended deed, notarized and filed just 2 weeks before her death. The clause was printed clearly in bold, just above her signature. In the event that either heir attempts to sell the property without the full written consent of the other, all rights and ownership shall transfer irrevocably and entirely to the uninformed party. The character clause, she'd titled it. It was dated, it was signed, it was legal, and Celeste had violated every word. I opened the envelope next. Inside was a letter written in Grandma's unmistakable voice, firm, warm, and devastatingly prescient. "If you're reading this, my darling girl, then your sister has shown her true colors." I closed my eyes, breath-catching. Of course Grandma had planned for this. She'd known Celeste knew what flattery and pressure could lead her to do, and she'd known me too. That I'd be the one to hesitate, to wait too long, to trust too much. But not this time. I stood up, the amended deed in hand. Wendell stepped forward silently, reading the look on my face. "She did it," I said. "She triggered the clause." He nodded. "Then the house is yours." I looked around the study one last time, and then toward the front door. It's time we told her. The conference room in Wendell's office was uncomfortably bright, the kind of sterile glow that made people look more nervous than they were. Celeste swept in 10 minutes late, her heels clacking across the floor like a warning. She wore her power blazer and that practiced smile that always curled at the edges when she knew she had the upper hand. Thatcher trailed behind her phone, in hand, jaw tight. Their attorney, young, fidgety, and clearly in over his head, looked like he regretted ever taking the case. "This better be quick," Celeste said, sliding into the chair across from me. "We're finalizing yacht paperwork this afternoon." I placed the folder on the table and met her eyes. "Then you'll want to pay attention." She rolled her eyes and leaned back, arms folded. "Here comes the moral speech." "No." Wendell said, his voice calm, but clipped. "This isn't about morality. It's about legality." He opened the file and laid out the amended deed in front of her, the official seal catching the light. Celeste blinked, then leaned forward. "What is this, an amendment filed by your grandmother 2 weeks before her death?" Wendell said. "It includes what she called the character clause." I watched the color drain from her face as she read the highlighted section. "She never told me about this." She said, her voice sharp. "I was the executor. I handled everything." Wendell nodded. "And by attempting to sell the house without Eloise's written consent, you breached your fiduciary duty and triggered the clause." Thatcher's hand landed on her shoulder. "That's not binding, right?" "It is," I said. "It's notarized, filed, and enforceable." The young attorney flipped through the pages, his face paling. "She's right. Legally, this supersedes the original deed." Celeste shook her head slowly, like the facts would rearrange themselves if she stalled long enough. "But the sale already happened. The money's moved. The buyers." "The sale is void," Wendell said. "You acted without proper authority. And under this amendment, all ownership and control now fall to Eloise." Celeste stared at me, stunned. For the first time in years, she didn't have a retort ready. "I'm sorry, Celeste," I said, though the words didn't feel like mine. "I didn't want it to be like this." She blinked fast. "So that's it. You get everything now." I looked at the papers between us, the ones she had ignored and the ones I had finally learned to read. "No," I said. "I get what you tried to throw away." Wendell slid one final document across the table. "And effective today," he added, "Eloise is the sole estate manager." Celeste didn't move, not even when the pen rolled toward her. Celeste sat frozen in her chair, her eyes fixed on the letter Wendell had just handed her. The red wax seal bore Grandma's monogram MRM pressed deep into the paper. She turned it over slowly as if expecting it to vanish. I was supposed to get this when she asked, voice flat. If the character clause was triggered, Wendell replied. Her fingers trembled as she cracked the seal and unfolded the letter. Her eyes moved quickly at first, then slower. I watched the smugness dissolve, replaced by something I hadn't seen in years, uncertainty. She didn't speak for a while. When she finally looked up, her expression had sharpened. She thought I'd do this, she said, her voice edged with disbelief. She actually thought I would betray you. I held her gaze. She didn't think. She knew. Celeste slammed the letter down on the table. I was the good granddaughter I stayed. I handled the estate. I organized the memorial. You were off in Boston pretending you had more important things to do. You were here, I said gently, but you were never with her. You talked about loyalty like it was a currency. Grandma saw through that. She shook her head. So what, I'm the villain now? You think you're better because you showed up in the end with your fancy claws and your perfect timing? No, I said, leaning forward. I don't think I'm better. I think I listened, and I never used her death to climb a ladder. Celeste looked down again, her voice cracked. I didn't mean for it to go this far. But it did, I said. And now you have a choice. She didn't respond, just folded the letter neatly and slid it back into the envelope. Her hands were steady now, but her shoulders were slumped. The fight had gone out of her, but I didn't know yet if that was surrender or shame. Wendell rose quietly. You both have time to decide how this story ends. I stood too, gathering the documents into my briefcase. Celeste didn't look at me, but she didn't stop me either. As I stepped into the hallway, the echo of her voice caught up to me barely above a whisper. She always loved you more. I spent the next 2 days combing through every estate file Grandma had kept in the study. It wasn't just legal diligence, it was penance. I owed her that much. Each receipt, each account summary, each perfectly labeled envelope told me something she never said aloud. She trusted me to find the truth when it mattered. And I did. The expenses started small, routine maintenance, property taxes. Then the labels began to stretch: executive wellness retreat, garden re-landscaping, social dues reimbursement. I flipped through spa invoices, private car services, and quarterly payments to an exclusive country club where Grandma had never set foot. I wasn't just angry, I was sick. When Celeste showed up unannounced that evening, I didn't ask her to sit. I simply handed her the printouts. She skimmed the first few pages, her mouth tightening. I know how it looks. How it looks, I snapped. You used Grandma's money like it was your personal slush fund. She sank into the chair across from me. Thatcher said the returns would cover everything, double it even. It was supposed to be temporary. I stared at her. Returns. She looked away. He invested it. $800,000 in a development deal in Tampa. It was all going so well at first. And now she hesitated, then answered so quietly I barely heard her. The developer filed for bankruptcy last month. My stomach dropped. You used protected estate funds on a high-risk real estate scheme. I thought I could fix it before anyone noticed. Her voice broke. I just wanted to keep things together. I didn't mean for this to happen. I wanted to scream, to shake her, to remind her how Grandma had scraped together that money over a lifetime. But instead, I forced myself to breathe. Why didn't you come to me? Because you always had the answers, she said. And I didn't. She looked smaller than I'd ever seen her, less polished, less dangerous. I don't know what to do, she whispered. Neither did I. But I knew one thing: this wasn't just greed. This was a woman unraveling in silence, wearing pearls over panic. And now we were both standing in the ruins. Wendell listened without flinching as I walked him through everything: Tampa, the bankruptcy, the $800,000. He didn't ask me to repeat a word. When I was done, he folded his hands over his desk and exhaled, not surprised. Only saddened. She saw this coming, he said quietly. Not in detail, of course, but she knew who Celeste trusted and how easily charm can mask recklessness. I felt hollow. So what now? We sue my sister, freeze her assets, press charges. Wendell opened the lower drawer of his desk and pulled out a thick navy folder. Your grandmother established a policy 2 years ago, a private insurance rider attached to the estate. It was created specifically for this scenario, unauthorized investment or misappropriation by any executor. I blinked. She insured herself against Celeste. No, Wendell said. She insured you against Celeste. He slid the folder across the desk. The policy covers up to $1 million in damages, but it requires a formal breach acknowledgement, signed by all parties involved, full financial counseling, legal detachment from future estate authority, meaning Celeste walks away. Forever. He nodded. I leaned back in the chair, processing. She wouldn't just lose control, she'd lose her place. Everything she built her identity around being the executor, the organizer, the one who handled it all. Gone. What if she refuses? Then the insurance is void, and you'll have to pursue restitution in court. I looked down at my hands. For a brief moment, I imagined Celeste at the garden gate again, 9 years old, holding my hand after Grandpa's funeral. Back when neither of us knew what power or loss felt like. Just sisters standing side by side. Eloise Wendell said gently, "This protection is yours. But it doesn't come without cost." I nodded. I know. He placed a pen beside the agreement. Then it's time to decide. I reached for the folder fingers, brushing the embossed edge, and closed it slowly. If she's willing to sign, I said, I'll take care of the rest. And for the first time, I understood exactly what Grandma had meant by thinking 5 moves ahead. Celeste stared at the list of conditions like it was a sentence, not a solution. Her hands were clenched in her lap, her wedding ring glinting under the fluorescent light of Wendell's office. Liability, acknowledgement, counseling, full renunciation of rights, she read aloud, her voice thin. You really want me to sign away everything? It's the only way the insurance will cover the loss, I said. It protects the estate. It protects Grandma's name. Thatcher stood pacing near the window. This is ridiculous. You're not some criminal cell. You don't owe anyone an apology for trusting your husband. She flinched. Wendell folded his hands. You do owe accountability for misusing estate funds intentionally or not. That's the line Mirabelle drew. Thatcher turned on her. You're not actually considering this, are you? I am, she said quietly but clearly. His eyes narrowed. After everything I've done for you. She looked at him. After everything you cost me. Thatcher didn't argue. He just grabbed his coat and walked out. The door shut behind him like a final gavel. Celeste didn't cry. She simply signed her name at the bottom of each page, her handwriting steady. When she finished, she passed the folder to Wendell and turned to me. I don't know who I am without all of this, she said. But I want to find out. I nodded. Then we start here. She gave me a tired smile, fragile but real. And for the first time I saw her not as the rival or the role, but as a woman finally stepping into something honest. We left Wendell's office together, no lawyers, no theatrics, just 2 sisters, and the long road ahead. I found her in the garden early one morning, sleeves rolled, knees dusted with soil, pulling weeds with more focus than I'd ever seen in her. The old rose bushes by the fence, Grandma's favorites, had gone wild in the years since she'd tended them, but beneath the thorns, the roots were still strong. They're not dead, Celeste said without looking up. They just needed someone to notice. I knelt beside her, gloves in hand. It's a start. We worked in silence for a while, clearing out broken branches, loosening the hardened earth. She didn't try to explain herself, and I didn't ask. The rhythm of shared effort said enough. When she finally spoke, her voice was low. I think I spent most of my life trying to prove I belonged. I thought if I stayed close enough to the family name, to the role, maybe it would finally feel like mine. I glanced at her. It was never about what Grandma gave us. It was about who we were when she wasn't watching. She nodded slowly. And I wasn't much of anything. That's not true, I said. But you got lost. And now you're finding your way back. Her shoulders softened. If you'll let me. I pressed another layer of mulch around the base of a blooming stalk. keep showing up. She didn't say thank you, and I didn't need her to. This wasn't about apologies anymore. It was about rebuilding one root one morning, one honest act at a time. The garden had always been Grandma's sanctuary. Maybe now it could be ours. The bench sat beneath the old magnolia tree just where Grandma used to read to us in the summer. A simple brass plaque bore her name and one line from her favorite poem, "What is rooted in truth cannot wither." Celeste stood beside it, hands folded, voice steady. She gave us more than a house. She gave us a place to come back to even when we lost ourselves. No designer dress, no spotlight, just her and the soil beneath her shoes. The small group neighbors, a few old family friends, listened quietly, and I stood at the edge watching not the speaker, but the sister who had learned to live without applause. She wasn't trying to be the favorite anymore. She wasn't reaching for approval or masking shame. She was just there, present, grounded, real. When she sat beside me on the bench, she didn't say anything. She didn't need to. We watched the breeze pass through the roses she'd brought back to life, their petals open soft and still standing. Grandma would have loved that. We stayed there long after the others left, letting the silence fill in the places where words had once done damage. And for the first time, it felt like home again.